My name is Derrick Grootboom. I was born on the 24th of August 1966 in a small rural town called Kliplaat in the Eastern Cape. My mother and father, our family, we were 5. Father passed away while I was serving my 7 years imprisonment on a charge of sabotage. I received the news of his death while I was in C-section on Robben Island. I'm the eldest of 5, and I am at present working for Robben Island Museum, being an ex-political prisoner. I have returned to Robben Island last year September after a year's studies in the United Kingdom, where I completed a master's degree in law. Before that, I worked for the National Prosecuting Authority as a public prosecutor for 6 years, having completed my first degree, bachelor's degree, through the University of the Western Cape. After my release, I, of course, completed my high school studies in prison, and then started with my degree studies whilst being in prison, completing it at the University of the Western Cape after my release. To give a context to this interview, I'd like to read from page 3 of this book, Black Politics in South Africa during the 1980s, written by Professor Tom Lodge and Bill Mason. Of course, I was introduced to Professor Tom Lodge and his series on Black Politics in South Africa while I was in E-section on Robben Island Maximum Security Prison, where Lerumo Kolako was my political commissar. On page 3 of this book, it reads, "The long struggle for black political rights in South Africa has been marked by several critical turning points, but none was as crucial or as dramatic as the events of the 1980s. The decade began with black school children refusing to accept the educational system, continued with the most sustained and determined black rebellion against white rule in South Africa's history, and ended with the unbanning of the exiled black political parties, the release of their leaders, and the beginning of negotiations with the South African government for major political transformation. It was a decade when the pillars of apartheid finally gave way under social, economic and political pressures from the black majority. It was a time when ethnic politics, black politics, white politics, colored politics, Indian politics became simply South African politics." That was the conditions prevailing when I got involved. The UDF, of course, launched on the 20th of August 1983, Mitchell's Plain. I was elected the chairperson of the Düsseldorp Youth Congress in 1983 until my arrest and imprisonment. Of course, the Düsseldorp Youth Congress, after our release and unbanning of the ANC, was transformed into the ANC Youth League, of which I became the chairperson again after my release. The UDF itself, during its launch, Alan Boesak, of course, was a great inspiration to us. Alan Boesak, and I read again from the same book, Alan Boesak brought the delegates to their feet with 3 little words. Words that express so eloquently our seriousness in this struggle. All, here, and now. We want all our rights. We want them here, and we want them now. That was the launch of the UDF. We've traveled from Düsseldorp, Oudtshoorn in the Southern Cape, to Cape Town many times to be addressed by Alan Boesak. And I remember especially Athlone, near the Creek Center. There's a hall there where we also used to have our meetings during that period, past 20 August 1983. The conditions prevailing at that time, there was economic recession. The majority of black youth suffered the assaults of police, our family members suffering the assaults of police, our family members being evicted out of their houses, unemployment amongst African youth, all these things, and of course the incidents happening during the 80s where the police, like the Trojan horse in Athlone, where the police were shooting and killing us. All those news filtering through to us through, for example, in Oudtshoorn we had a community newspaper, Samstaan, of which I became a distributor as part of my involvement there in the Southern Cape. And so these things would touch us. And I remember at the meetings especially, You know, when you were at these mass meetings, your hair would raise. You would get the shiverings going down your spine. And it was really an exciting period. I myself was not at the actual launch in Mitchell's Plain when it was launched on the 20th of August 1986. I was 16 years old. Our leadership were mainly based in Oudtshoorn. I was in Dorp, that was my town, which is 20 kilometers from Oudtshoorn. I was attending high school at Bridgeton Senior Secondary School. Now, our schools were in turmoil. We were having class boycotts. And, you know, during break, we would go to the shops, and in the same street as the shops would be the UDF office, the Saamstaan office, where our newspaper, the Saamstaan, would be distributed from. And that is where we would receive the information about the launch of the UDF. The formation of the UDF, as I remember it, was to bring all civil society organizations together to unite our people as a front against apartheid. The link with the ANC, of course, have been there from the beginning. And that was for me really the thing that really inspired me, and till today inspires me, is that I know that South Africans, white and black, colored and Indian, can work together. During our marches, people were working together. They were marching together, they were singing together, they were crying together. They were falling on their knees in front of Caspers, singing Nkosi Sikelel' Africa together, South Africans of all race groups. And I think if we wanted to destroy apartheid and we were not united as UDF united us, then I don't think that we would have brought the pillars of apartheid down during the 1980s. So it would have definitely been a disadvantage if we did not make the UDF as broad as possible, almost like the ANC, a broad church, not excluding anybody from joining, because the aim was one: apartheid must be destroyed. Today, for example, in South Africa, we have poverty as our main enemy, and poverty we won't be able to destroy if we use the example of the UDF, if our people are not united, if they are not one in spirit against this evil that cause our children to die, our women to die, the Grootboom case, Ailing Grootboom. So we need, now that we're celebrating 25 years of the UDF, we need to revisit that spirit. And we know that with that spirit, we can achieve great things. We have done it. And I think it would have been a very big disadvantage to us then, and it will be a disadvantage to us now, if we cannot unite our people with that same spirit of unity. Our Constitution, the New South Africa, unity in diversity, we have it there. It's just for us to pick up the yoke and do the job. The early UDF affiliates in this book, Black Politics in South Africa, you'd see, for example, the student formations in the Transvaal. The old Transvaal, we had 11. In the Western Cape, we had 23. In Natal, we had 9. In other provinces, 4. Total number 47. We had youth, 14 in Transvaal, 270 formations in the Western Cape, 15 in Natal, 14 in other, 313 in total. The workers, 8 in Transvaal, 2 in the Western Cape, 4 in Natal, 4 other, and 18. So, you know, religious organizations, political organizations, civic organizations, to really go to each individual organization. For example, I was a member of the Dorp Youth Congress, which was an affiliate of the UDF. Many of these organizations, of course, doesn't exist anymore, because the UDF, of course, was disbanded after the ANC's unbanning. Thank you. So, you know, just revisiting that list again, you can see that, you know, there were so many formations, and especially the numbers. You can see the larger numbers of these formations, affiliates of the UDF. For example, if you look at the youth, 240 in the Western Cape alone. how strong and powerful the UDF used to be in the Western Cape.
Can you actually give us the founder member leaders?
Well, we had from KwaZulu-Natal, Agumedi. We had, of course, Ellen Busak. Here we had others like Terra Lakota. We had Popo Molefi. We had, the names is innumerable, all those who were leading us. Of course, Winnie Mandela was very prominent in our struggle during that period. Oscar Mpeta, and so the list goes on. Well, you know, the struggle of the people and how they took on the apartheid regime, to a large extent, you know, were left to the people on the ground. I remember we organized the people in Dorp around the bread and butter issues, of course, and then also around the fact that people were forcefully removed in terms of the Group Areas Act in that area, from Vaikraal, from Varkieskloof, from Blaupunt to what is now today Dorp. Dula Oma, who became our first, Dula Oma, who became our first Minister of Justice in the democratic South African government under President Nelson Mandela, as he was then, he was the lawyer representing those people who were forcefully removed in that area. Some of those who were now by then elders, by the time that we as the youth started to organize people around the destruction of apartheid, some of them were sitting at home with 25 years suspended sentences. The adults were very much afraid to get involved in the struggle, so we organized them around that dispossession of the land. Of course, today I can say, taking, of course, the pride of all of us who work there, that after my release, I became the first chairperson of the Dorp Land Claims Committee, and the people received the land back. So the 1980s, our program of action was to unite the people to stand up against what was wrong there and there in their communities. And to say to them, these things which are wrong, like your land that were taken away from you, that land we want back. And when we destroy apartheid, and when the people govern, you will get your land back. It was initiative, it was action, and it was delivery. I must also say that during 1983, the tricameral parliament system, which was, of course, one of the things that ignited this opposition to apartheid, trying to drag the colored and Indians into parliament and to make apartheid much stronger, and we said no. No to the tricameral parliament system. And there's a Dorp actually, during that vote for the tricameral parliament, the coloreds, because there's Dorp is a colored community, or used to be a colored community, they voted the majority in the country, voting area, district. There's a Dorp had the highest vote for the tricameral parliament system. Of course, our organization, organizing the people there, and even after our release, turned those voters in Dorp to vote majority ANC. And all of these things starting in the 1980s. So the program of action for us, in short, was to get the people involved around things which they themselves endured as oppression, as wrong, as abuse of their human rights, and to get them to get involved personally. And that was for us the program of action. How are we going to get the people involved, and how are we going to tackle these issues? By bringing them in the streets, mobilizing, mass-based movement. The document, and that is really, if ever I read something beautiful and something that really inspired me, it is still the Freedom Charter. Kliptown, 1955. Now, the Freedom Charter, of course, today, when we read our Constitution, we'll find the Freedom Charter in this Constitution. But the Freedom Charter was the document that all these formations adopted. And all of us had to learn it and know it by heart, because that's our aspirations. That's what inspired us so much during the 80s. Of course, we are now faced with economic rights. And to realize that, of course, that wish is expressed in the Freedom Charter. The wealth of the country shall be shared amongst all of us. The land shall be shared amongst those who work it. So, the Freedom Charter, as relevant as it was yesterday, still today, it is relevant. You see, the thing is, I was 16 years old. I just came into politics at that level. I wasn't involved at that level where I would be told why the UDF must be launched in Mitchell's Plain. Closing of the chapter on the UDF happened at Pentec. I must say that I was not happy. I may understand today why it was closed there. You know, a mass-based organization closed there in that hall in Pentec, that lecture hall. But yes, that's where the book was closed on the UDF. UDF popularized our leaders in exile. You know, all the stories that we could hear about Oliver Tambo, the work that he was doing, you know, Radio Freedom, listening to his voice, getting his instructions. The ANC for us in the UDF, those leaders in exile, they were our leaders. And our work was to get our organization, our mother organization, the ANC, the African National Congress, to be unbanned. We wanted our leaders back. And we wanted democracy, one man, one vote, so that we could decide our own destiny and elect our leaders. The UDF was like the front of the ANC, legally operating inside South Africa, and that's how I understood it. The UDF benefited the people of South Africa because we could now have the ANC, in inverted commas, operating legally in the country. We could gather people to work in unity as the masses, popular support for the revolution. Of course, it would have been illogical, or it would have been very detrimental or stupid if the UDF would have made it public that they are actually the ANC inside the country, or that they have this close link with the ANC, because then they would have just been banned, you know, and you know the whole idea would have fallen through. With regard to the end of the UDF, of course, although I have all this love and fond memories of the UDF, we must remember that it was established to bring our leaders back, to bring our organizations back, and they did the UDF did its work. So there was no need for the UDF anymore. What we needed to do was to maintain the spirit of the UDF, which is in essence also the spirit of the African National Congress, and or perhaps one would say the PAC, to unite the people and to have a non-racial society, to have freedom. Yes, it was good, and it will forever remain good, and that it was an important period, the 80s, because apartheid finally came down during the operation of the UDF. If somebody would have said then, 1983, when the UDF was launched, 10 years after the launch, Mandela would be free. People would have laughed at that idea. But it happened. It was so fast, it was so quick, and then it was over. So, a very important period, an exciting period, and let's get the spirit back.